There are stories the world tries to hide, but this one couldn't be buried. In today's video, we reveal a mystery that has defied experts, authorities, and witnesses for decades. You're on Hidden Wonders, where we explore the most disturbing enigmas on the planet. Take a deep breath, because this is just the beginning. Imagine finding a map. Not just any map, an ancient document stained by time, with coordinates that shouldn't exist. Places that were erased from official records. Islands that disappeared from satellites. Constructions that no government acknowledges. This map exists, and it was discovered under circumstances that no one can fully explain. It all began in 2003, when an antique dealer in Prague received a collection of documents from a bankrupt aristocratic family. Among yellowed letters and faded photographs, there was a cartographic map dated 1957. Seemingly normal, except for one disturbing detail. 13 locations were marked in red, 13 coordinates scattered across the globe, and beside each mark, a single word written by hand, in Latin, prohibitum, forbidden. The antique dealer, a man named Joseph Krau, was a specialist in historical maps. He immediately noticed something strange. Some of the coordinates pointed to known regions, but others indicated locations that simply did unexist on modern maps. One of the marks pointed to a small island in the South Pacific. When Joseph checked contemporary navigation systems, there was nothing there. Just open ocean. But nautical records from 1952 briefly mentioned this island. After that year, all references disappeared. Curious, Joseph began to investigate. He discovered that a merchant ship had reported the island in 1951, describing a stone construction on top of a hill. The sailor said the structure appeared ancient, but perfectly preserved. They tried to disembark, but were prevented by violent currents. A year later, the island ceased to appear on maps. Officially, it never existed. Joseph continued his research. Another coordinate on the marked map pointed to a region in the mountains of Kazakhstan, a military area during the Soviet era. He found declassified documents that mentioned an underground installation at that exact location. An installation that was sealed in 1959 after an unspecified incident. The sealing orders came directly from Moscow. The location was covered with concrete dozens of tones, and then ... forgotten. But the most disturbing part was yet to come. One of the coordinates pointed to an area in the middle of the Nevada desert, United States. When Joseph used satellite images to verify, he found something bizarre. There was a geological anomaly, a perfect circle on the ground, approximately 2 kilometers in diameter. Perfectly circular, natural, impossible. He zoomed in on the image. Inside the circle, geometric lines, patterns that appeared artificial, but there were no access roads. No visible structures, just that mysterious circle in the middle of nowhere. Joseph tried to find information about that area. He discovered that the region had been federal government property since 1954. No public access, no official explanation of its purpose, just an exclusion perimeter. He began to perceive a pattern. All 13 locations had something in common. They were places that, at some point, were important enough to be documented. But then, systematically, they were erased from public records. Why? What was in these places that justified such secrecy? Joseph decided to go deeper. He hired a private researcher to investigate 3 more of the coordinates. One in Antarctica, another in Siberia, and a last one in a remote region of Australia. The coordinate in Antarctica pointed to an area near the Vostok research base. Soviet documents from 1959 mentioned a significant geological discovery in that region. The details were vague, but indicated that something had been found beneath the ice, something that led to the construction of a temporary research facility. The facility was abandoned in 1962. Records about what was found were classified and never disclosed. In Siberia, the coordinate indicated a dense forest hundreds of kilometers from the nearest city. Local witnesses from a nearby village reported intense military activity in the area during the 1960s. Helicopters, trucks, soldiers. And then, suddenly, everything stopped. The forest was declared an environmental protection zone. No one can enter. And, in Australia, the coordinate pointed to the Central Desert, in a region that local Aborigines call the place of silent spirits. They've avoided that area for centuries. They say that whoever enters doesn't return the same way. Scientific expeditions tried to study the region in 1966, but were mysteriously cancelled. Joseph was beginning to understand that there was something much bigger happening. This map wasn't just a historical curiosity. It was a document of something deliberately hidden. But who created the map, and why? He found a clue. In the lower corner of the map, almost illegible, there was a stamp, a symbol, a circle, divided by 3 vertical lines. Joseph recognized that symbol. It was the emblem of a special military cartography division that operated during the Cold War. A division that officially never existed. Joseph Crowell was facing something that could change everything we know about government secrets and hidden places. That map wasn't just a historical artifact. It was a key to places that someone very powerful wanted to keep away from public eyes. But Joseph made a mistake. He started talking about his discovery. In 2004, he gave an interview to a small Czech newspaper, mentioning the map and his discoveries. He didn't reveal specific details, but said enough to draw attention. 3 weeks later, his office was broken into. Nothing was stolen, except the documents related to the map. The map itself, however, was in a bank vault. Untouched. Joseph was scared, but also determined. He had made digital copies of everything before the break-in, and began sharing the information with independent researchers around the world. That's how the map reached other hands, and the discoveries multiplied. A researcher in England decided to investigate one of the coordinates that hadn't yet been explored. It pointed to an area in the North Sea, approximately 40 kilometers off the coast of Norway. Using commercial fishing records, he discovered that boats had been avoiding that region since the 1970s. Not because of natural dangers, but because navigation instruments inexplicably failed when they approached. Compasses spun without direction. GPS showed erratic readings. Radios emitted constant static. Local fishermen had stories. They said that on clear nights, strange lights could be seen below the water's surface, lights that pulsed in regular patterns. No one knew what they were, and no one wanted to find out. The researcher tried to obtain permission for a diving expedition. It was denied, without explanation. Meanwhile, another investigator in the United States focused on the coordinate in the Nevada desert. He obtained high-resolution satellite images of the area and made a surprising discovery. That perfect circle on the ground wasn't natural. When he adjusted the contrast settings on the images, he could see underground structures, tunnels, chambers. Something had been built there, and then buried. He tried to find construction records for the area. Nothing. He tried to obtain information through Freedom of Information requests. All were denied or returned completely redacted. But the most disturbing discovery came from a Japanese researcher who investigated the coordinate in Antarctica. He found declassified documents from a Soviet expedition in 1959. The expedition had been sent to investigate magnetic anomalies detected in the region. What they found was never fully revealed, but the reports mentioned geometric structures under the ice and materials of unknown composition. The expedition was abruptly interrupted. The scientists were removed from the area in less than 24 hours, and all collected data was confiscated. Decades later, ground-penetrating radar images revealed something extraordinary in that same region. There are structures beneath the ice, structures that don't appear natural. Geometric shapes, precise angles, and they're more than 3 kilometers deep. No government officially acknowledges the existence of these structures. Back to Joseph Crowell. After the break-in at his office, he decided to make the map public. In 2006, he published the complete coordinates online, along with all his research. The site was up for less than 48 hours before being taken down, but the damage was already done. The information had spread, and then Joseph disappeared. Not literally. He simply stopped responding to emails, stopped answering phone calls, closed his business, and moved without telling anyone. To this day, no one knows where he is. Some believe he was threatened. Others think he was paid to stay silent. There are those who say he simply became afraid of what he was discovering and decided to give up. But the story didn't end with Joseph's disappearance. Other researchers continued the work, and new discoveries were made. One of the coordinates on the map pointed to a region in northern Russia, near the Arctic Circle. Military records mentioned tests conducted in that area during the 1960s. Tests of what? It was never specified, but local survivors reported seeing silent explosions in the sky, intense lights that made no sound. And then, for weeks, people in the region became ill. Unexplainable symptoms: extreme exhaustion, disorientation, fragmented memories. The Soviet government evacuated all nearby villages and declared the area a military exclusion zone. To this day, it remains closed. Another cordon pointed to an island in the Indian Ocean, an island that appears on old maps, but disappeared from modern records. A researcher found reports from British sailors in 1948 who visited the island and described stone ruins, not common ruins. They said the stones were perfectly smooth, as if they had been polished by machines. And there were inscriptions, symbols that didn't correspond to any known language. A British military expedition was sent to the island 2 years later. When they returned, all data was classified, and the island was removed from official maps. Why? What was in these ruins that justified so much secrecy? The questions multiply, and the answers remain evasive. What does this map really represent? Is it a catalogue of secret military experiments, archaeological discoveries that contradict official history, or something even more disturbing? Some theorists believe that these locations mark places where something inexplicable happened, phenomena that defy our understanding of reality, and that governments around the world decided, collectively, to keep this information away from the public. Others argue that these are simply secret military installations from an era when the Cold War required extreme levels of secrecy. But then, why erase the places from maps? Why deny they exist? The truth is, we don't know, and perhaps we never will, completely. What we do know is that the map exists. The coordinates are real, and the places they indicate have stories that someone wanted very much to hide. So, what really happened with these forbidden places? And why were they systematically erased from public records? Let's recap what we've discovered so far. We have 13 coordinates marked on a map from 1957. Each one points to a location that, at some point, was important enough to be documented. But then, deliberately, these locations were removed from modern maps, denied by governments, or made inaccessible to the public. Island in the Pacific that disappeared from maps after 1952. Installation in Kazakhstan sealed with concrete. Perfect circle in the Nevada desert with buried structures. Magnetic anomalies in Antarctica, with possible constructions beneath the ice. Exclusion zone in Siberia surrounded by stories of inexplicable phenomena. And this is only part of the story. Researchers who gained limited access to some of these areas reported disturbing experiences. Electronic equipment failing without explanation. Sensations of profound disorder, and in some cases, witnesses described seeing things they cannot rationally explain. A former military member who served near one of the coordinates in Australia gave an anonymous testimony in 2011. He said that during training exercises in the region, his unit was instructed never, under any circumstances, to approach a specific area marked only as Sector Delta. No explanation was given. Just an absolute order. One night, one of his colleagues disobeyed. He walked away from the camp and headed toward Sector Delta. He was found 3 hours later, only 500 meters from where he started. He was disoriented, unable to explain where he'd been, and his watch had stopped at the exact moment he crossed the invisible perimeter. In the following days, the soldier developed strange symptoms: sebeta, insomnia, memory lapses, and he repeated constantly that he had seen lights beneath the earth, lights that moved in intelligent patterns. He was removed from the unit and never spoke publicly about the incident again. Stories like this are rare, but they exist, and they all share common elements: inexplicable phenomena, equipment failures, temporal and spatial an absolute official silence. So, what are we dealing with here? Military experiments that went wrong, archaeological discoveries that contradict established historical narratives, or something deeper and more disturbing? There's a theory that has gained traction in recent years among independent researchers. They believe that these locations marked on the map may be connected to rare geomagnetic or geological phenomena, places where the laws of physics behave differently, natural anomalies that, when discovered, were immediately classified and hidden. Why? Because if the public knew that there are places on Earth where reality functions differently, it could shake scientific, religious, and philosophical foundations. It would be a revelation too disturbing to be openly disclosed. Others believe in something even more controversial, that these locations were used for advanced technology experiments during the Cold War. Technology that was never publicly acknowledged, and that the side effects of these experiments made the areas permanently unstable or dangerous. There are also those who argue a simpler explanation. They read just secret military bases protected by layers of disinformation and bureaucratic secrecy, nothing more than national defense installations that, for strategic reasons, need to remain hidden. But then, why erase entire islands from maps? Why deny the existence of archaeological ruins? Why create exclusion zones without official explanation? The answer may lie in the map itself. Remember the word written beside each coordinate. Prohibitum. Forbidden, not secret, not classified. Forbidden, this suggests something deeper. Not just information that shouldn't be shared, but places that shouldn't be accessed. Not for national security reasons, but for another reason. A reason that whoever created this map considered absolute. Joseph Crowell, the antique dealer who discovered the map, left one last message before disappearing. In a 2005 interview, he said, "The more I investigated, the more I realized that this map wasn't made to hide these places from the world. It was made to warn someone, to say, don't go there, never go there." And then he disappeared. Since the map became public, there have been some attempts at independent expeditions to verify the coordinates. All failed or were prevented. Permissions denied. Equipment failing, and in one specific case, a team that tried to reach the coordinate in the South Pacific simply never found the location. They navigated to the exact coordinates, and there was nothing there. Just empty ocean. But satellite images from previous decades clearly showed a land formation at that location. So, where did the island go? Submerged? Destroyed? Or simply ... concealed? The mystery of the forbidden map remains without definitive solution. But one thing is certain. There are places on this planet that someone or something decided we shouldn't see, and the reasons for this remained as hidden as the places themselves. Perhaps we'll never know the complete truth. Perhaps these are stories that should remain buried. Or maybe, just maybe, the truth is waiting to be discovered by someone brave or reckless enough to look. Now, I want to know, what do you think? Were these places hidden for national security reasons? Or is there something much more disturbing going on? Leave your theory in the comments below. And if you know someone who has visited some strange place that seems not to exist on maps, share that story with us. If you made it this far, it means you're exactly the kind of person our channel was made to reach. Someone who isn't afraid to question, to investigate, to look beyond official explanations. And I need your support so we can continue bringing these stories to light. Subscribe to the Hidden Wonders channel and activate the notification bell. We have dozens of disturbing mysteries like this one waiting to be revealed, and each subscriber helps us reach more people who, like you, want to know the hidden truths of our world. Levirlak, if this video made you question what we really know about our own planet, share with that friend who loves inexplicable mysteries, and comment with the hashtag #ForbiddensMap so we can see your theories. Until the next mystery, and remember, some stories don't want to be forgotten.